Well, it seems with President Donald Trump in the White House, the United Nations could be in for a bit of a change. So says our new ambassador, Nikki Haley, who assumes the presidency of the Security Council today for the month of April. You know, she's been on the job for just over 2 months and says the administration has already chalked up some successes at the world body. Their goal, she says, is to try and reform the UN to better face the threats we all now face. I sat down with the ambassador for our exclusive Fox News interview, and we talked at the United States mission to the UN about her new role. She went from the South Carolina governor's desk to a seat on the United Nations Security Council.
We need to be concerned about chemical weapons use in Syria.
And as president of it this month, Nikki Haley, the new United States ambassador to the United Nations, brings a blunt message to the UN from the Trump administration.
And what we're trying to do is say, okay, it's a new day at the UN.
That new day, she says, will focus on human rights, UN peacekeeping, the UN budget, and working to correct the wrongs that have plagued the world body.
We just need the United States to lead again. I mean, think about that. Lead again. And so that's what I'm trying to do. And leadership is just letting them know what we're for, what we're against, have the backs of our allies and make sure they keep the backs of us. And then anyone that challenges us, call them out. Let them know what we think is wrong. That's all this is just making sure we're changing the culture to showing strength from the United States again, action, and making sure that we show value in the United Nations. I think it's important for the American people.
She points to the tragedy of Syria as a prime example of where the UN could have done more. The human catastrophe continues on an unimaginable and horrifying scale. More than 500,000 killed, nearly 14 million refugees. And Haley says the war could have possibly been avoided had the Security Council taken action. Since the start of the war, Russia has vetoed 6 resolutions in order to protect its ally, Syrian President Bashar al-Assad. Do you in part blame the Security Council, when it comes to Syria, that the war and this horrendous carnage could have been prevented?
Well, I think, the previous administration needs to take responsibility for that as well. I mean, you look at Syria, and it's just gone so far off. I mean, first of all, Assad is he's a war criminal. He's used chemical weapons on his own people. He's not allowing aid to come in. He is very much a deterrent to peace. If you look back, so many things could have been done to prevent where we are today, and that's what we need to focus on now.
Do you blame the Russians and the Russian veto protecting Assad?
I think the Russians and the Iranians have been very much a part of why Assad has had the strength that he's had and the reason why he's been able to basically hurt his people in the process.
There are reports that the administration will give a, quote, pass to Assad. What's your view of that?
I don't think the administration's given a pass to Assad. Assad is a problem. The administration sees Assad as a problem. But the bigger problem is ISIS. So are we ever going to give a pass to Assad? Absolutely not. Are we ever going to hope that we can bring him to justice and for the people of Syria? Yes. I mean, that's something we have to do. But ISIS, we've got to start dealing with that so that we can bring peace back to the area. And we have to do it by getting the Iranian influence out and moving Assad out of the way.
You also talk about the Security Council and its inability to face some issues. North Korea, for example, continues its nuclear program, continues ballistic missile firing and testing, and China protected North Korea for years in the Security Council.
It all comes down to China. And this is what's going to happen. This administration now is no longer going to take the conversations with China that they're worried too, and they think that that something has to be done. They have to do something.
What type of action would you like to see?
I think China totally has the ability to put sanctions on North Korea. North Korea is dependent financially, militarily, in every way with China. And so if China really wanted to get the attention of North Korea, they have plenty of tools in the toolbox to do that.
When you came, were you surprised at what you found here? You had been a governor. You know how to operate a bureaucracy and agencies. Were you shocked?
I was. I was really shocked because I had heard what it was like. But to actually be here and see kind of just, I guess I saw it in South Carolina, but just that same club mentality and doing things a certain way because they'd always been done that way. And the fact that actions had slowed down and, it had gotten stale. And so now to look at it and say, oh, there's a lot of changes we can make, that's what I've done. Well,
tomorrow in this hour, 6 p.m. Eastern, we will have part 2 of our interview She will address the White House efforts to trim the UN budget, and we'll look at what Ambassador Haley says was the biggest surprise she encountered when she arrived at the UN. Said she went to all these meetings in the Mideast, and she said they didn't talk about ISIS or radical Islamic terrorism or Iran, but they criticized Israel.